the whole let's just throw some medication at it hasn't been working. So bringing in the types of methods and modalities that we want to use at Humble Warrior, I think it's really starting to pique the interest of people, and that it's becoming more and more evidence-based every day. So we're really hoping that kind of helps us grow quickly and gain a lot of support.
You're listening to Relish This, the Purpose Marketing Podcast. Here's your host, Stu Swineford.
Hey everybody, Stu here. Today's episode was really fun. I had a great conversation with Elaine Brewer, and she is one of the founders of the Humble Warrior Wellness Center. And they are in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And they're a great nonprofit that is really looking to help veterans and first responders with mental health, physical health, etc. They're up and coming, so they're just getting started. And they have a lot of interesting challenges in that they're trying to raise money, they're trying to navigate this global pandemic that we're still in the midst of, and they're just trying to build relationships and make connections. And one of the things we talked about that I think was really powerful is this idea around creating a relationship with somebody. And before you go and start asking them for donations or for business or whatever it is that you're trying to get from them, just really making sure that you've created an opportunity to connect with them. And so leaning on the commonality that you have to start those conversations and really develop those authentic relationships before you even start to go for a big ask. I had a lot of fun talking with Elaine. I think they're gonna be doing some really great, hard, important work, and I hope you really enjoy the show. Elaine, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Stu?
I'm doing well. So you're coming from Colorado Springs, is that right?
Yes, we are.
Fantastic. I went to school down there, actually. I don't spend much time in the Springs anymore, but I lived there for 4 years when I was in college, way back in the day.
Yeah, we've been here 3 years now, and absolutely love it. I am a mountain mama, so I love it.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's a really great town in terms of mountain access, and I rode bikes back in the day, and so it was just a fantastic place to train and enjoy just all of the really cool places around that area, for sure.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to learn more about what you're up to down there and see what kind of gold we can uncover for you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. It's always great to have a platform like this to kind of spread the word about what we are trying to create here. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. So to tee things off with a little description and introduction to your project.
Okay, so my name's Elaine Brewer, and I am the founder of Humble Warrior Wellness Center, and it is a facility that we're trying to create here in Colorado Springs for our military and our first responders. And at this center, we really focus on healing, mindfulness, and mental health and wellness. We like to bring in sensory deprivation pods, yoga, meditation rooms, alpha stimulation, steam and saunas. We like to incorporate the beautiful environment that we have out here in Colorado Springs with doing camping and hikes. And then we also want to bring in education, which we call our pillar seminars, and really talk to our humble warriors about mental health and chronic pain and sleep hygiene and financial peace. So we really just want it to be this community of relaxation and recovery and restoration for, our nation's warriors.
Yeah, that sounds like really good stuff. I know Colorado Springs is a big town in terms of the military, so you're certainly in the right spot. And it looked to me when I checked out your site that this is a project that's just getting started. Is that correct?
Correct. So, it's been interesting. This kind of idea came to fruition over the summer, and we got our 501(c)(3) at the end of July. And now we're kind of in the process of our grant plan. And so
Okay,
we will receive a grant calendar February 1st, and then we're going to kind of hit the ground running with that. So, yeah.
great. Well, you're certainly off to the races. I commend you for taking the leap anytime, particularly during this crazy time that we're living in right now. And I'm sure that you're going to be bringing a lot of really good things to that community. What so grants are obviously on the agenda, and I saw that you're taking donations as well. Are there any other revenue streams that you guys are going to have in place?
We do have, just like an apparel t-shirt campaign that we have going on our website and Facebook page. Um, so that, sorry, did I lose you?
Nope, you're still
Okay.
there.
Yeah, so we have our t-shirt apparel that we have on our Facebook and website that has been, pretty much helped us get kind of the ball rolling on this. We're doing donations, grants, creating a facility is very challenging, and you really need kind of your community backing. You need people giving donations, and definitely those grants are huge. So we are taking on a huge endeavor here, creating
Yeah, you are.
an actual space, but it's just so needed, and we are very passionate and we believe in it. We've had so many people kind of reach out and say that this is kind of like a first of its kind center, bringing in all of these kind of practices and techniques and system into one place to kind of create this community like environment. So we're really hoping that, people believe in it and, want to pay it forward to us.
Absolutely. So, what are your targets right now, and what's the launch plan? Do you have a phased launch plan? Are you trying to do you have to get everything rolling to start and kind of bring it all to fruition at once, or what's the future look like for you?
So I would like to phase in right now, because it's going to take a while to get the structure, but we're talking about sharing space, possibly with Mount Carmel, which is a huge veteran center out here, and having me just tentatively hold some trauma informed yoga classes and meditation classes.
Okay.
Once we get a space, we will probably start with meditation and our pillar seminars and yoga. Alpha STEM is very easy to bring in. And then once we start acquiring more funding, we're going to bring in kind of the more expensive things like the sensory deprivation pods and the steam
Right.
and saunas. But we're also kind of looking for companies that kind of believe in the mission, that are, patriotic and,
Hmm.
love our first responders and military, and hopefully have them sponsor a room. So whatever, let's say, the sensory deprivation float room would cost for a year, they kind of sponsor that, and their name
Okay.
goes up on the door, and they have an option to renew that sponsor every year. If they choose
Okay.
not to, then we will open that room up to a different company or organization.
Okay, great. It sounds like you're kind of hitting on all the pillars that we would start to look out. Have you started building your list, and what does your donor base look like? What does your email list look like right now?
Um, well, we have a pretty extensive email list, just because, we're coming from a special forces community. We know a
Hmm.
lot of people in the nonprofit sector. A lot of our friends have started different nonprofits. But right now, it seems like a lot of people, and unless it's in their own backyard, although if Humble Warrior is successful here, we would like it to bring it to other regions in the U.S.
Hmm.
But we really need Colorado Springs to get behind us on this, and we're pretty new to the area,
Okay.
so. And, we're doing this during a global pandemic. So it's been really hard to fundraise and have events and do networking groups and all of that. So that is something that we really want to start doing. I think we want to do like a Humble Warrior incline hike and, kind of
Okay.
do like
Yep.
little things like that bring out. I know there's a lot of military owned restaurants and breweries out here, and we're hoping once everything opens back up that they will be receptive to kind of helping us get this thing rolling. So,
Well, like I said, I think you've chosen a good area to
mhm.
start this endeavor. There's certainly a lot of military and retired military in the Colorado Springs area, and it is a challenge during these times when we can't really get together. It makes it a lot more challenging to go to network events and those types of things. I think one of the first things that I would throw out there as an option for you is, or something to consider, is actually something that was told to me back in September, which was you really have an opportunity to kind of create your own network and your own
Mhm.
community by starting a podcast. And
Yeah.
so that's what I did, and that's why one of the reasons why we're here today is I committed to doing this for at least a year, and really starting to try and talk to have conversations with people in the community I was trying to serve, which is the nonprofit space, and it really does allow you to bring people in, particularly in a moment when we don't have the kinds of resources and availability for in-person activities that we would normally rely upon for those kind of networking opportunities. So what I would recommend you consider is thinking of doing something similar for your community, and really coming at it from the perspective of relationship building and value exchange. And so really just trying to be incredibly empathetic in terms of what you're providing. Just give people information,
Mhm.
just build communities, and be a real solid resource for those people who potentially could become stakeholders at some point in terms of being donors or participants and beneficiaries of your upcoming service.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. And, creating those relationships, not only for people who could possibly help support us, but also just kind of hearing these really powerful, impactful stories, I think, from people who would benefit from a Humble Warrior Wellness Center too. I
Yeah,
think that would be,
absolutely.
yeah.
I know,
So great
I
idea.
never, yeah, I didn't serve in the military, but I have been in this entrepreneurial space for quite some time. And one of the things that I've noticed is that we as people tend to think we're the kind of the only people who've ever gone through a certain thing. We're struggling with business or with personal stuff or whatever it is, and we tend to kind of hole up and start to feel sorry for ourselves and do some things that that are not beneficial. But really, just knowing and being able to create that community, and knowing that this isn't the first time that that anyone has gone through this particular challenge is just such valuable information. And I think that probably holds true in your community as well, where people start to have challenges and think, oh, I'm on an island here, and really just having those resources and knowing that there are other people out there who are willing to share those stories, I think is a great first step to creating and building those relationships and helping people just get the help that you guys are going to be providing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of our main missions is kind of eradicating the stigma around mental health for first responders and military. And, you know, people hear of self care and yoga and
Hmm.
meditation and all of this stuff, and it can be, perceived as, emasculine or, more feminine based. And, sometimes self care can even be perceived as selfish. And we're really trying to make that like adaptable for our warriors and kind of bring them into this wellness space and show them that, you're not broken, nothing's wrong with you. This will make you better warriors. This will make you better operators. This will make you better wives and husbands and partners in the long run when you can kind of balance out these hyper vigilant work environments. So, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I have several friends who are first responders in both the medical field as well as firefighters, and I was an EMT at one point, and it's funny because one of the things that they tell you is don't become another victim,
Mhm.
but that that group tends to, just as you said, have a little bit of a hard time feeling like they can turn things off and be able to take a breath and do some self care. So, like I said, I think it's really important work, and I'm glad to hear that you're down there, putting something together that's going to really bring a lot of benefit to people's lives.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal, and we're going for it. So, yes,
That's
we're
great.
it's been very challenging. We kind of came into this, like I said, I was a military wife. I have a high school degree. That's it. My husband was 20-year Naval Special Forces.
Hmm.
And, this was just kind of became a passion and now it's become a purpose. So, learning how to create a website on my own was a challenge, but, we got through that. And then going through the 501(c)(3) is a huge challenge. Doing all of this, figuring out how to get donors and funding in a global pandemic when everybody is financially hurting is, been very interesting to go through. So, um, but we're people who love a challenge. It's
Good.
very much,
Yeah.
very much so. If you can't tell.
No, you're tackling it head on for sure. Um, so a couple things there. One is there are some great resources available that you might consider looking into. The first one is Energize Colorado. And I'm actually a mentor at Energize Colorado, but it was put in place this past year, specifically in response to the pandemic and the economic crisis that was kind of following on the heels of the onset of the pandemic. And it's a statewide program that has quite a few different resources that I think you might be able to tap into and to get some assistance.
Mhm.
Um, and it also has, and this is where my participation is you can tap into mentors who will help kind of guide you through some of the hurdles that you are that every new organization or new business kind of is faced with. So that would be a great resource. And then the Small Business Development Center. Again, this is a program that I've been somewhat involved with in terms of I've been doing some teaching there, just kind of weekly seminars that they run. I'm not teaching weekly, but they have them every week. But those are really good resources for information and connections. So those would be two places that I think that you might be able to find just some additional assistance. Particularly when you're wearing all the hats for your
Yeah,
organization right
definitely.
now.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm familiar with the Small Business Development Center. I think my husband did a few things through them when he was creating his LLC. So, yeah, I think I can definitely get on board with that. And I'll look up Energize Colorado because everyone needs a mentor, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just nice to make sure you're on the right track, and I think that's what a mentor can really do is not necessarily do the work for you, but at least keep you keep you from tacking too far off off the path that you're trying to move down. So
Yeah, for
those I
sure.
think would
And
be two good resources for you.
just like, in talking with other nonprofits in the area or, um, you know, believe it or not, I'm sure but for people listening, the nonprofit sector, to my surprise, can be extremely competitive. And a lot of people don't want to share resources or don't want to kind of help you out. And, for me, this isn't about obviously making money. It's not about, hoarding resources or networking opportunities, but it's really about saving lives and making sure that our warriors are living their best lives, not just surviving but thriving. So um yeah, I'm always down to share connections and be an open book for anybody. So I think that's really great that they have people that are there to kind of help you through this. I like people like that. Those are my people.
Nice. Yeah. A good friend of mine always says that I'm going to screw this up, but he basically says that uh, a rising tide lifts all ships. And so, I think that's a good way to look at things. And it's unfortunate that there are some people out there who don't share that particular idea,
Right.
but, but, those who do, I think you can tap into those resources and really get a lot done, and get a lot of good shared information.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that with me.
Sure. So what are your your revenue goals for this year? What gets you up and running and really gets that engine turning over?
Um, well, it's a little hard to give a full guesstimate because it's really like what type of space can we secure.
Hmm.
But I think when we did kind of a full first year funding, it was around 500,000,
Okay.
and that is to like secure the space and get everything and create a yoga room and the meditation rooms and all of that. And then after that, I can't remember the full amount, but it would just be kind of sustaining. It wouldn't be the full $500. It'd be probably more like 100,000 to 200 to
Per year.
sustain a year. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And
And
I
does that
think that's in
include?
like a 4,000 square foot building,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. Cool. So sounds like there was perhaps a first step, which was a shared space at the VA center. Perhaps is that
Yeah, and
on the
that's
table or
just
not?
to include, just to kind of start a humble warrior like yoga and meditation class and kind of like
Hmm.
spread the word out there. What we're kind of looking at for our center is it's all really other than our seminar room, which is probably going to be shared as the yoga room.
Hmm.
That's really the only thing that is like a communal practice, I guess.
Okay.
And so the sauna and steam rooms, they're individual. So
Sure.
you would go in there and you would hit the iPad and turn on like a guided meditation, or you could just sit in there,
Hmm.
in quietness. Same with the low sensory meditation room. So basically, our structure would kind of look like maybe um, old chiropractic practice that has like
Okay.
individual treatment rooms and then a large area that can be used for a yoga studio. And we'd
Okay.
like to have some type of a lobby aspect where we can have, coffee and tea and kind of, have some chairs and, just a kind of community place where people can talk or chat.
Yeah, or wait for their
Yeah, wait for
for the
their
sauna
room to
for the
open up.
sauna to open up. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And um, have you it sounds like you've done some thinking around how to get in touch with kind of veteran-owned businesses and things of that nature in the Colorado Springs area. Have you started that outreach, or are you doing anything in particular right now to kind of kickstart donations?
Well, like I said, we did kind of a grant research.
Okay.
I can't think of what it's called right now, but they kind of do this mass spread of all of the organizations that kind of meet and fall in line with your mission. And then, and so I should get that back on February 1st. And then we're just kind of just start, throwing the grant writing out there. There are other kind of, a lot of the organizations, like you can't just reach out to a company, like they have their specific separate grants or nonprofits that align with your mission. So I don't, I mean, yeah, I know there's a lot of restaurants and breweries and, like Tactical 511 is big in Colorado Springs. I'd like to reach out to them. I haven't done that yet because we're kind of creating our sponsorship / grant writing kind of plan and package right now.
Okay. Okay, great. There is an event tomorrow that's put on through Colorado Nonprofit Association.
Okay.
This isn't going to help people listening to the show when it launches, but that's okay. Colorado Nonprofit Association is a great resource, and
Okay.
it's just
Yeah.
Colorado Nonprofits plural.org. But they have a grantmanship webinar coming up tomorrow, so it might be worth taking a peek at that, and I'll send you a link as soon as we're off our
Great.
recording for that. But that might help just with kind of that grant writing process. It's a little bit of a head scratcher if you've never done it before.
Definitely.
So there's some tricks to that trade for sure.
And okay,
So
so
I
the
would
Colorado.
say,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So the Colorado nonprofit, I know that they have a center in Denver, but I was also seeing that they had one here in Colorado Springs. But as far as I know, and as far as I researched for the one in Colorado Springs, are they not operating anymore, or are you? Do you
I
know
do
about
not
that?
know, actually. I know that the Denver office is up and running.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the Colorado Springs office, but they do have an online presence, and pretty much everything right now is
Virtual.
virtual anyway.
Yeah.
So that might just be a resource to look into. And like I said, I was aware that they had this upcoming event, so I thought I'd mention it to you in case that sounded like it might be helpful.
Yes, for sure. Because navigating grants and you have to know how to put your best foot forward with that. It's such a competitive process. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely enlisting all and everything that we can get to help us with that. So thank
That's
you. I
great.
appreciate that.
My pleasure. So one of the things that I think might be helpful is the consideration that yes, you have a fundraising goal of 500 grand, but you don't necessarily have to come up with that full amount to get things rolling.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a trap that a lot of organizations and business leaders fall into, is thinking of the entire salary or the entire investment that they need to make in order to make that year happen. And so just reframing that thought process a little bit, it can be really helpful. I know it's been helpful for me to reconsider that. Yes, you want to do a hire, or you need to get a space, and that's going to be this fairly large chunk of change.
Mm-hmm.
However, you don't have to come up with all of that at once. You're able to pay that down on either every couple weeks or every month, depending upon what the terms of your arrangement are.
Yeah.
So just that can be just a really nice mental reset in terms of this idea of and I don't love this analogy, but the idea of eating the whole elephant.
Yeah.
We tend to get really paralyzed when we think of the entirety of the mission, but but rarely do we have to overcome that entire thing at once. I mean, even climbing Everest or doing something gigantic is really just one step at a time. And so if we can break things down and do two things: one, break it down so those little summits seem more surmountable, and then two, it gives us the opportunity to set little milestones that we can tick off to kind of mark progress, and also get those little positive feedbacks in our brain that we just accomplished something. So those would be two kind of mindset shifts that I think could be helpful for you guys as you're looking at how do we get this thing rolling.
I mean, yeah, you're so right. I mean, like you talk about having small attainable goals is so important. And like we're trying to do these podcasts. We're hoping that once we start doing community outreach and fundraisers, that there's somebody in the area. With COVID-19, there's so many of these structures that are laying unattended and have nobody that is occupying them, and people are just kind of eating that mortgage or that lease or whatnot. And we're hoping that maybe somebody would be able to donate a lease for a year or kind of help us out with a lease agreement if they like our mission or whatnot. But yeah, we're finding it are the biggest headache we have right now, because it's like, you see the full picture. Like you said,
Uh-huh.
you see yourself summiting Everest, and it's, you fall trapped to what's along the way.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that, and I'm not super well versed in the real estate market, the commercial real estate market, but
Hmm.
certainly I cannot imagine that things are going swimmingly in a lot
Yeah.
of respects, in terms
Right.
of people are getting really used to working from home. Companies are getting used to their entire staff working from home. So that does open up some interesting opportunities, and I would imagine that this is a pretty great time to start to explore that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know any real estate people in Colorado Springs. I do know a
Hmm.
few people in Denver, and it's an interesting time. So as you said, I think
Yeah.
that there's probably some opportunity to negotiate a sweetheart deal, or get somebody who's able or willing to donate some space for some period of time, and that just chips away at that 500K mark.
Oh
And
yeah. I mean,
or
totally.
yeah.
And but like that's a challenge, is getting a commercial realtor to even talk to you, because if a space is donated, or if there's a lease agreement, does that cut in on their commission? Do they
Mm-hmm.
even want to entertain that idea? So um yeah, that's the whole thing about being competitive and
Sure.
sharing the network.
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting. If that's the first next step. Anyway,
Yeah.
if that's the next thing that's on your list of things to do, is to secure um, a location.
Hmm.
Uh, I would suggest just starting to ask those questions and make
Yeah.
calls to some realtors, make calls to some leasing agents, look at co-working spaces and see if there's excess capacity,
Mhm.
etc. Because, and this is another great saying that someone told me actually on the show earlier this year, is the answer is always no if you don't ask.
I was just
So
gonna say that,
yeah,
like, what's the worst they can say? No? Like,
yeah,
if you're working a nonprofit, you have to get over that fear pretty quickly.
absolutely. And yeah, and I think that we get better at it the more we do it, and so the more times you just put yourself out there, it hurts a little less every time that you don't get the answer that you're looking for. But certainly, not asking is not going to get you any closer to the answer that you're interested in either. So,
Yeah.
so just continuing to hammer those connections. And I know we met on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and I do know that there are a lot of ways to kind of leverage LinkedIn to get not only veteran information, but very location based information. So
Yeah.
LinkedIn has Sales Navigator, and I want to say it's like $80 a month, and you can turn it on and off. So if you hopped into Sales Navigator and just hammered on it for a month,
Hmm.
and then turned it off, you'd probably be able to get a lot of potential leads and connections that you could make there.
Yeah. So, kind of going off of, we kind of stumbled across nonprofit loans. How do you feel about that? Or how do those really kind of work out? Or is that another just trap that you're falling into?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think that any organization has the opportunity to tap into loans, and certainly there are quite a few government opportunities that are available or starting to kind of come available right now, as well.
Hmm.
I think in any loan situation, it's there's some risk involved. It
Yeah.
sounds like you have done some good things to tee things up from a liability standpoint. So my guess is that you just need to kind of have a good understanding of what your personal risk tolerance is in
Read the
terms
small
of
print.
loans. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and but I think that there's some opportunity, and that might be a good question for the team over at Colorado Nonprofit Association, and just get into that network. Not only are there a lot of businesses in that network that serve nonprofits, kind of like mine, but there are also just tons of nonprofits in there. So that might be a good place to go to. Just start kind of asking questions. I also know that there are lots of groups on LinkedIn. There are actually some nonprofit groups on Reddit as well.
Okay.
So they're available. They're out there. Just dig a little bit, and just I would just start asking those questions, because, like I said, you're not the first person who's traveled this particular path, and there are lots of people out there who are willing to share information and pitfalls and mistakes that they made that they wish that they had known about before they before
Yeah.
they made them, that are completely thrilled to death to help you or help someone else kind of navigate those waters without having to make the same mistakes.
Yeah, that's great. I will have to attach myself to some of those pages and, just gain some knowledge from people who've done it before me. So that's very good advice. I will definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really awesome about Colorado is we are just steeped in people who are trying to do philanthropic things.
Hmm.
So it has a huge nonprofit community. There are lots of other organizations like B Corps and benefits corporations
Hmm.
or benefit corporations who are just trying to do some nice things in the world. And so it seems like it's really very easy to rub elbows with somebody who's started a nonprofit or is on the board of a nonprofit or has worked with one. So there's just a lot of information out here that's readily accessible.
Yeah.
And that proximity piece becomes a way to get in the door. So, I think that looking for other veteran-based nonprofit organizations
Hmm.
that are out there and just reaching out to those people and saying, "Hey, we're doing this too," because their beneficiary base is your beneficiary base. Excuse me, and so if your services aren't competing, if they're complementary, then there's very little reason why those groups wouldn't want to bring you into their kind of network.
Yeah. And
So
I
Yeah.
also feel like the kind of world is moving to this realization of mental health and wellness, like with the pandemic, we've all kind of gone through our own little source of trauma and everything that's kind of going on in the culture of first responders right now. And, just the military mental health issue has been an issue for the last 20 years. So
Hmm.
I think people are kind of moving into this space where, you know, the whole let's just throw some medication at it is hasn't been working. So bringing in the types of methods and modalities that we want to use at Humble Warrior, I think it's really starting to pique the interest of people, and that it's becoming more and more evidence based every day. So we're really hoping that that kind of helps us grow quickly and gain a lot of support.
Yeah, I think that um, the stigma of mental health challenges has started to go away, and I'm sure
Hmm.
that there are people with experiences that would shed light on that it hasn't fully gone away, which is unfortunate. But it does feel that feels like it has changed
There's been a
remarkably.
shift for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and there's just a better awareness as to that this isn't something to be embarrassed about. It's just part of being a person,
Hmm.
and that we really do need to help take care of people who are struggling, particularly those who've put everything on the line for the rest of us. So all the people that you are serving certainly fit that fit
Yeah,
that model.
I agree.
So as you get up and running, have you considered doing any kind of mobile work as an
You know
option
what?
to go
Yeah.
to places as opposed to having people come to to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Specifically with yoga and meditation, we have thought about doing kind of a mobile, like going to different police stations or firehouses, like Fort Carson is huge here. Going
Mhm.
down there, even possibly, going out to Denver. We're also talking about doing some virtual stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean that's all come up very much, and we are definitely working diligently to kind of get some of that going. um, I think what I need with that initially is just probably reaching out to some sponsors, local sponsors, for some yoga equipment or donors for yoga equipment so I can get,
Okay.
a lot of these guys and girls who do these jobs, they're not doing, these crazy yoga moves. They're doing kind of deep stretch or, yeah, they need the bolsters. They need, the kind of blocks to help them. I know our military, my husband, when he does yoga, it's, he's not so mobile anymore, so
Yeah,
flexible
my
anymore.
my favorite pose is corpse pose.
Yes,
So
exactly. Um, so yeah, I mean, I know Lululemon uh, and Athleta is out here, and they really like doing huge community um, sponsorships and projects like this. So they were definitely a few people that I would like to reach out to.
okay. Yeah, so usually how I try and break that down is, again, just set some kind of set a goal in
Hmm.
terms of how many people are you going to reach out to every week, and create a list, and make sure that you are working toward that goal.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that a, a good friend of mine who was gracious enough to coach me this year helped me achieve was just to dedicate the time, put it on my schedule, and stick to it. And when you do that, it starts to become a habit,
Hmm.
and so it starts to feel a lot less daunting. And so that kind of just dedicated time, on your calendar, whether you say I'm going to do this for 3 hours a week or 5 hours a week or 1 hour a week,
Yeah.
but just basically just carving out the time and making sure that you commit and execute on that
So let
is
me ask
can
you
be really
this.
powerful.
Um, Let me ask you this. So, if you're doing kind of a community sponsorship, like somebody in your area, somebody in your community, um, how do you suggest the best way about approaching that? Is that an email? Is that a handwritten letter with your sponsorship package? Should I go to, the store and speak with, the manager of the store? Like, do it face to face? How would you approach getting these community sponsorship opportunities?
Well, that is a really good question because the answer is sort of yes. The
Yes to
first
all
thing,
of the above.
yeah, I mean, the first thing I think I would do is try to develop a relationship.
Okay.
So before you send somebody something um, that they haven't asked for,
Mm-hmm.
simply ask the question if that is something that they'd be interested in.
Okay.
And there are a few reasons to do that. One is people tend to be more receptive and anxious to get, or excited would probably be a
Mm-hmm.
better word,
Yeah.
excited to get something that they've actually requested, as opposed to something that just kind of randomly shows up. So the opportunity there to capture that attention and actually get somebody to take some kind of action is a little bit higher if they've raised their hand
Mm-hmm.
to that.
Yeah.
The second thing is that it creating and establishing a relationship prior to asking people for a favor. If you think about how relationships work in the real world,
Mm-hmm.
we don't typically rush up to somebody and ask them to do us a favor. We typically have some back and forth. We've gone to coffee. We've maybe gone on a hike together, and have met each other's spouses or whatever. But
Yeah.
there's a relationship, and and in sales, which is essentially a way to think about what you're trying to do, those relationships and those opportunities to nurture those relationships can go a long way. It's a lot easier to ask your buddy to float you $10 than it is to ask a stranger to do that.
Yeah.
And so, um, so depending upon who you're trying to reach, I think that there are a variety of different tactics that you could deploy to get in front of the right people, and B, with kind of that right message, and then C, the thing that makes it all come together is doing that at the right time. And so that's why we really do like to think of all of those kinds of sales opportunities as just pure relationship building, and how can we nurture that relationship, and how can we create opportunities for give and take within that
Yeah.
relationship, as opposed to just constantly asking for something all the time.
Yeah. And that's, in some aspect, I guess I, Humble Warrior, me and Heath are, the founder and the co-founder. A lot of the people that we want to reach out to in the community, like I feel like we have a relationship with. I mean, that's where my family goes to eat. They don't know us yet, with some of the tactical apparel places or tactical gear places. I mean, that's what my husband wore to war. He has a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with that company. They don't know us yet. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, we've invested a lot in the companies that I feel like we really would like to reach out to. We just have to get them to kind of invest in us. And I guess that's what you're, kind of getting at. But yeah,
Yeah. So the first step there is to really look for commonality,
yeah.
and and so if this tactical apparel company is, I'm assuming that they have some sort of veteran capacity at their
Mhm.
organization. That's something in common that you have with them, and so that's a door opener. That's a way to kind of start that conversation.
Yeah.
And I would say that just thinking about how to have small offers and small asks as you build that relationship would be the way to kind of approach that. And so, starting that relationship by, hey, we really love your equipment. We've
Mhm.
used it ourselves in both, combat and non-combat situations because we're veterans, and would just love to connect with you. So, for example, if your first outreach is on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
just trying to create some sort of sense of commonality as you're developing that relationship, and then allow that to kind of build and grow organically,
Yeah.
um, instead of having the um, having the instincts to to just jump into the, would you be willing to give us 100 grand as a room sponsor?
Yeah.
um, so that's, I think, the way to go. Now, in terms of how to get in front of them, usually what we talk about there is in in kind of a persona creation mechanism where we're trying to establish your help you establish who your target audiences are, or who the people are who are going to be part of your crew.
Yeah.
um, so these might be corporate sponsors, these might be individual donors, etc. Where do they actually go to get information?
Yeah.
And just make sure that you are kind of swimming in that same pool. So you're active, if it's LinkedIn or if it's Facebook, or wherever it is that these people go to, to connect with others and to get questions answered. Be there, and just be consistent in your activities on those platforms, and just be willing to and consistently altruistic about sharing information. And so, maybe that's, a yoga pose of the day, or what to expect when you get acupuncture for the first time, or um, what to bring with you when you come to use a sauna, or what's a sensory deprivation tank like. And
Yeah.
just like the top 5 questions that people ask when they're trying to explore this new experience, and just being there and being willing to share that information and consistent about putting that information out there. That tends to be the, one of the things that's really powerful in terms of making sure that you are there at the right time. Because a lot of times people, you can put the same message out there a whole bunch of times and it's just the wrong timing, and then
Yeah.
that fifth time that you put it out there, that was the day that they were actually looking for that assistance or that information. And that's how you can really start to kickstart that relationship.
Yeah, very, very much so. I agree with that. I'm the only one kind of running all of our social media pages and all of the content. And, I kind of started a blog on the website, and it's so hard when you're doing, all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
And being a mom of, two little boys, and, also, yeah, it's really hard to kind of stay consistent with content. So I will definitely try and be more intentional with that. And maybe, Sunday is my day to load up, content for the week. This is what I'm putting out on Monday. This is what I'm putting out on Tuesday, and just take a couple hours on Sunday to kind of have I guess, like a coordinated plan for the week, instead of
Yeah.
trying to, find something, Wednesday night for, Thursday morning or something.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are a few things that I think to consider. And the first one is, and I had this exact conversation with a client earlier today, is I would much rather see you get really consistent base hits in one game
Mhm.
than to be trying to play multiple games at the same time and just be striking out everywhere.
Yeah.
So, that's why professional athletes tend to be a single sport kind of person.
Yeah.
is they can be great at a bunch of different things. Certainly, I mean these people are amazing athletes.
Mhm.
However, they can only excel if they put their attention toward one thing at a time. And so, I'd really like to encourage all of our clients and all of our connections to figure out where their biggest opportunities are. So, think about where your audiences are going to go to get information and where they are active, and just get really good at swimming in that space.
Yeah.
And just get lots of base hits, because sometimes a base hit turns into a double or a triple or a home run. And
Yeah.
so you kind of never know exactly what's gonna really work. And so that's why being consistent is the other piece of the equation there. um, in terms of I think you're on to something in terms of just carving out time in your week.
Mhm.
And I was trying to take a peek at your site. What's your site built in? Is it? Oh, it looks like it's Squarespace. Oh, Wix. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So Wix might have the ability to do this. I'm not a Wix specialist, so
Mhm.
I'm not sure. But you might be able to load up your podcasts, or I'm sorry, not your podcasts, your blog posts,
Mhm.
and schedule them for publication.
Okay.
So instead of having to feel like you need to go in every week, you can get 4 done and then just schedule them to release, so you don't have to go back in and monkey with it.
Right.
They'll just release on a schedule.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you can schedule them.
Okay, cool. And then there are services like Hootsuite um, that allow you to do the same sort of thing for social media. So again, I think trying to just get consistent in a single space or a couple of spaces, as you might have a couple of different personas. I'd rather you got really good at one or two things, as opposed to trying to be awesome in a whole bunch of things.
Yeah,
And then the other
that makes a lot
piece
of sense.
is you don't have to come up with all the ideas yourself. So what you can do is find information. So this is kind of called, and I can't remember who coined this phrase, but basically it's being the maven. So
Mhm.
being able to supply people with information is almost, if not just as good as being able to come up with the information yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So as you're sitting on the couch and maybe surfing the web, as you're watching TV or whatever, just start to collect articles,
Mhm.
information that you can point to, and we recommend adding a little bit of flavor to it. But essentially, like, hey, here's a great article from Lululemon that talks about how how to start practicing yoga.
Yeah.
And we think this is super important because it's really about the same kind of stuff that we teach when we bring new people into yoga classes. And so enjoy the article.
Yeah,
And
and
so
I'm
you're,
really
yeah.
trying to join kind of like, especially on LinkedIn or, um, like health and wellness groups or,
Hmm.
yoga journal or, this or that, so that I'm being fed content and all I have to do is kind of save it and then, put a title on it. So yeah, you're absolutely right about not having that anxiety of having to come up with the content yourself. I mean, obviously, I think that's important to do it a little bit and kind of show, what your authentic kind of idea of something is. But I think just sharing content can also be really cool too.
Well, it can really help because it's a lot easier to just share and add a little flavor to something
Mhm.
than to come up with the recipe on your own. And I think that as you get consistent with it, then you'll start to get your own kind of blog ideas.
Yeah.
So certainly, it's something to think about.
Yes.
So I can't believe it's been almost an hour. This has been
I
such a
know.
cool
Great.
conversation. What are your takeaways from our conversation today?
um, I love, a couple of the um different groups you told me, Colorado Nonprofit, Energize Colorado Small Business Development Center. I'm definitely going to look into those. I'm really kind of curious about the podcast idea because, I have a lot of people in my kind of realm and in my network that I think, that could be really great. And I really like asking questions. I'm very curious about, just people in general. So that could be a really interesting thing to ponder on. I like that. And let's see. I think those are some really good takeaways. The grant thing and creating organic relationships with your supporters and donors, I think is really great advice. Like coming at it from a relationship and a point of what was the word that we were using? Commonality, I think,
Yeah,
is a really good approach to that because when you when you kind of see the whole thing come into place, it can make you just want to go full force and come on too strongly. And I think that's really great advice. That probably one of the biggest takeaways from today.
awesome. Well, I'm glad that you found there to be a few things that you can maybe act upon. Um, so, how can people find you? What's the best place for them to find you online?
So our website is www.humblewarriorwellnesscenter.org. That kind of has a little link at the top that will link you to our LinkedIn accounts, our Instagram accounts, our Facebook accounts, and also our apparel shop is on there as well, which is a great way to kind of donate, and you get a little present back. So,
That's awesome.
yeah. So, yes, we appreciate you checking it out. Like I said, at this moment, I'm running everything. So, if you have a question or want to know more about what we're doing or just us in general, or you're struggling and you want to just talk to Heath or I, my husband, we answer messages very quickly. So
Oh, that's fantastic. I love having these conversations, and I also really enjoy it when people can take action. If if you had our listeners take any action after hearing our show today, what would you have them do?
oh Lord, that's such a big question. After listening to the show and taking action, I mean, our mission at Humble Warrior is to, you know, take care of yourself. And, if you're doing anything with your mental health, be intentional about it and don't be scared to reach out. Um, there's no judgment in between having gone through something traumatic. So if you listen to anything from this, know that there are organizations out there that stand by ready and willing to help our service members.
Oh, I love it. I encourage everyone to check out humblewarriorwellnesscenter.org, and I'm sure that you guys are going to have some really great things on the horizon. And let's keep in touch so I can learn how we can continue to help you.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me on today. I appreciated it. And it was actually so much fun. I can't believe
Yeah,
it was an hour already, and you gave
yeah.
me some really great stuff to help us grow. So I appreciate it so much,
Well,
Stu.
that's fantastic. Thanks, Elaine. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, there you have it. Another great episode of Relish This. Thanks for listening. If you would like to learn more about how to apply the audience engagement cycle to expand your organization's mission, there are two things you can do. Right now, you can go to missionuncomfortablebook.com to download a copy of my book. And while you're there, you can get your purpose-driven marketing score to see where you can unearth some gold for your organization. If you'd like to listen to back episodes of the show or sign up to be a guest, go to relishstudio.com/podcast. That's it for this week. I'll be back next week for another great episode of Relish This.